I got a lot to prove!
Hello fellow miners, welcome to the 5th video in my series on how to be more successful at Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, my favorite roguelite survivor game. This series will cover a number of topics that will help you be more successful in your dives. It is intended for players who range from being relatively new, with little hours played, to more experienced players with lots of hours played. You should at least be familiar with the basic mechanics and gameplay prior to watching this video. For this video, I will be going over tips and strategies for specific biomes, bugs, elites, and bosses. The target audience are newer players, but experienced players may learn something too. The goal will be to help you be more confident when playing the biomes or fighting the bugs. If you want to learn even more, I suggest you join the DRGS Discord and ask questions, or drop a sub, as there's more to come in the series.
Gonna get the lay of the land!
Each biome has a unique set of bugs and features. This section will cover a few key tips for the biomes. Bugs will be covered in the next section. I will be focusing on less obvious tips for the more complex biomes, so Crystalline Caverns is not covered. Magma Core is more advanced compared to Crystalline Caverns, but is still one of the more basic biomes. The one tip I want to cover for Magma Core concerns the exploding plants, which I call lava bulbs. The lava bulbs can be extremely deadly to both you and the bugs. They act like the exploder bugs, where you can proc them by running into their trigger range. There are two strategies you can take with the lava bulbs. Pop them immediately whenever you run into them, or save them for swarms and attempt to pop them on the swarm. I tend to pop them immediately to avoid them potentially constricting my movement, where a swarm would force me to run through them. I find it better to have clear and safe paths as opposed to their one-time explosion, which may require some setup. Hollow Bough is the first biome where the game really starts adding complexity, primarily through the brown and red vines. The one tip I want to cover for Hollow Bough is how the red vines spawn. The red vines often form an X-type pattern close to the center of the map, where there are multiple breakpoints in the red vines from terrain or brown vines. These breakpoints are always in the center of the X and can be at random points away from the center. When setting up a defensive position flanked by one or more red vines, whether in the center of the map or at the edges, I always make sure there are breakpoints for a potential escape and locate them. Some red vines may give the appearance of breakpoints, but there will actually be none. This is very common with red vines that extend from the map edge outward. If you want to escape, you'll need to start mining the red vines a bit earlier compared to terrain or brown vines because it just takes longer to mine. You just want to avoid being fully trapped where the swarm is able to reach you before you escape. Salt pits is the second most complex biome. The one tip I want to cover for salt pits is how to use the stalagmite clusters. These are the red crystal looking nodes strewn around the map. You can mine these to drop a series of stalactites which deal damage to bugs on impact. If you are not aware, stalactites that fall from the clusters do so based on the direction you are facing while mining it, effectively aiming them. Azure Weald is the most complex biome. In addition to having some of the more unique bugs, Azure Weald includes my favorite feature, the jump pads. The jump pads provide an on-demand escape avenue in addition to allowing faster map exploration and mining. They actually make the meta minerals worth mining by jumping on the minerals, as they give decent XP in the early game. This is a great strategy to accelerate to level 5 before the first swarm spawn, which is really important for the hardcore anomaly dives. While a fine tip, the big tip I want to cover is how to deal with initial swarm spawns. Azure Weald is the one biome where I really watch the progress bar. Right before swarm spawns, I look for a large piece of terrain to mine into to make a defensive position, or I look for a jump pad so I can put some distance between myself and the Miniexploders. When mining out a defensive position, stay in your cave until you have cleared most of the Miniexploders, or you start to get overwhelmed. Here's another clip where I mine into the terrain and continue mining through the terrain until I basically run out of terrain. Most of the Miniexploders and other annoying bugs are dead at this point, so I can safely mine out and continue moving.
We got supplies ready for you. Clear the landing zone of obstacles, please.
Management will surely notice my efforts on this one!
The different bug types present their own hazards. It's good to know how to best combat the bugs or use them to your advantage. Here is a table showing the non-standard bugs, grunts and slashers, and their various characteristics. Praetorians are more basic in their mechanics, but they are able to mine terrain as they move. While not necessarily hazardous, this ability is usually beneficial. You can use the Praetorians to mine for you, whether it is to mine out the landing zone for the supply pod or to mine minerals.
Good work. Supply pod inbound.
Exploders are much more dangerous because of their ability to explode. They are also very beneficial as an extra source of damage, as they damage other bugs and their explosions also destroy nearby terrain. You can either proc their explosion by running into their trigger range, or you can wait for them to die and explode. You will likely be doing combinations of both as you progress the dives. Once they are swallowed up by the swarm, you might still be able to proc them, but it can be difficult when they're in the middle or the back of the swarm. Movement speed is a great stat for helping deal with them, as you can trigger them and get outside their explosion range faster. Mini-exploders are the bane of many a dwarf. Their speed tends to make them very dangerous. They are one of the few bug types where I pay close attention to the swarm spawns on the progress bar, where I tend to mine into a defensive position at spawns. As mentioned in part 4 though, they tend to only do so much damage where they are less dangerous the more clustered they are. Unlike the regular exploders, you can't manually proc their explosion, at least easily. There is a trick to get them to explode before they reach you, which is to move slower when they approach you. This sounds ridiculous, but moving slower allows them to catch up to you and trigger their own explosion. If you are moving just fast enough, you will move outside their small explosion range and take no damage. This can be very difficult to pull off, especially when mini-exploders are coming at you from multiple angles, and is best attempted with the controller, which allows more precise movement speed control. You can do this with the keyboard, where you stutter step, but it's much harder. Mactera mini-elites are pretty basic bugs, but they fly, which means you can't use terrain to influence their pathing. However, they have a very high turning radius, which means you can avoid taking damage by circling them. Here's a clip showing this where I'm trying to mine some minerals, and I circle around them, which allows me to finish mining and take no damage. Spitters are pretty basic, but I want to reiterate a point I made during part 4 regarding taking damage, which is that the projectiles tend to be less dangerous the more clustered they are because of the invulnerable period. Spitters tend to spawn in large numbers, so usually you encounter a flurry of projectiles clustered together. You should still try to dodge them, but if you are cornered, remember that more projectiles does not necessarily mean more damage. Kirinar Younglings are just as annoying as the mini-exploders. They don't do that much damage individually, but they can be maddening in large numbers. Movement speed is really good to help you move through and dodge them faster. They are susceptible to knockback effects from weapons like the PGL, Warthog, and others, including the knockback from level up. Knocking them back immediately reverses their direction, which can make knockback weapons more valuable. When encountering large numbers of them, it's best to avoid being really close to any terrain, including salt deposits or the map edge, as they bounce off the edges, effectively doubling their numbers since you'll probably have to dodge them twice. You may be able to better avoid the bounce back by paying attention to their angle of movement relative to the edges, but this is very hard to do depending on the angles and when there are a lot of them rolling around. When dodging them, I find I am spinning and changing direction quickly in rapid succession. More often, I won't be running in straight lines, but weaving between them in random zigzag patterns. There isn't necessarily a good trick here, it just takes a lot of practice. If you struggle with dodging them, make sure to prioritize armor and health upgrades. The Kirinar Youngling mini-elites are similar to their regular forms, but they have slightly different mechanics. They are not susceptible to knockback effects and can mine through the salt deposits on salt pits. Their turning radius is extremely high, and their turning appears more as a slight arc in their targeting of your dwarf. While annoying, you can easily dodge them by moving perpendicular to their movement direction. They only bounce off map edges, hard rocks, and minerals though, so like the regular forms, it's best to avoid being really close to the edges if you can. Pay attention to their angle of movement relative to the edges and move to avoid the bounce back. This tends to be much easier with the mini-elites since there aren't as many rolling around. Of all the regular bugs, Wardens require the biggest change in your gameplay. Their shielding is extremely disruptive as it prolongs fights against the swarms. You can be very passive and often ignore the other bugs, but not with the Wardens. It is best to play aggressively against them. Wardens deal no damage, so you can stand inside them for maximum hits from your weapons. Always look for them when they are spawning and jump on them quickly to take them out. If you can't get to them immediately, you can kite the swarm around and then circle back on them. They are slower compared to the other bugs and will not disengage their shielding immediately when kiting away. Since their movement is locked when shielding, this allows them to become separated from the swarm.
Need to move.
One down.
This section has mostly been about the bug enemies, but what about our bug friends, specifically loot bugs? The one tip I want to mention about loot bugs is that they block the movement of bugs, and as such, you can generally mine them very safely when there are bugs right next to them.
Better bring my hard hat!
I break the elites into two categories, the basic elites and the Kiranar Shellback elite. For the purposes of this video, I'll be focusing on the Kiranar Shellback elite as you can generally follow the regular bug strategies for the other elites. Shellbacks are unique among the elite bugs because they have a rolling chase attack and a spitting acid attack, both of which can be extremely annoying. Since they are extra mobile compared to the other elites, they can be difficult to damage without the right strategies. During the rolling chase attack, let the Shellback pass you and then follow the Shellback. Your weapons should be able to get in some good hits during the chase. Once the Shellback stops, run in circles around the Shellback to avoid the acid spit, or run outside the radius of the acid attack. If a Shellback is chasing you for a prolonged period, you can turn around and get a Shellback to stop and start the spitting acid attack. At that point, you can either run in circles around the Shellback, or run outside the radius to avoid the acid attack. Let's take a look at a clip where I implement these strategies.
Gimme! Feeling much better now. You ugly son of a bitch! I'm growing stronger.
The bugs grow stronger.
Fuck this bugs! What the more? Bring the fight! Don't mind if I do.
Objective completed. Drop pod has arrived. Get there now. It will leave without you.
Don't die, please. Let's clear them out.
Diving deeper. Taking you to stage 2.
And now a quick word from our sponsor.
Swarm's heading your way. Load up.
Let's try to stick together this time.
From the developers of Deep Rock Galactic Survivor comes a whole new way to mine. Introducing Deep Rock Galactic, the spin-off co-op first-person shooting game based on our favorite roguelite survivor game. Developers realized why limit ourselves to a zoomed-out isometric view when they could just keep zooming in and
boom, baby!
You got a new game. Play with your favorite weapons and class mods in a whole new view. Management will be pleased. Thank you, Funday and GSG. We appreciate your sponsorship.
I'm a certified badass. Sign me up.
There are 2 Dreadnought bosses in the game commonly referred to as the Solo Dread and the Twins. These bosses have various attacks that require different strategies with a focus on watching or listening for key attack animations or sounds. The Solo Dreadnought has 3 attacks, jumping, cocoon spit, and spikes. The attacks are split by 3 phases represented on the health bar. Jumping occurs during all phases. Cocoon spit, which are projectile balls that spawn smaller bugs, start at phase 2. Spikes are a cone-shaped series of mineable spikes that start at phase 3. Jumping and cocoon spit attacks deal damage while the spikes deal no damage but are intended to trap you. The twins are 2 mini dreadnoughts, one is melee and one is ranged. The melee is called the Lacerator and the ranged is called the Arbalist. Each has only one attack. The melee twin has the same jump attack as the solo dread, while the ranged has a fireball attack unique to the twins. The unique mechanic of the twins is their healing, which they do when their health difference becomes too large. During their healing, they are invulnerable to damage. Let's take a look at some clips of fights against both bosses. Alright, here's the Dread Cocoon and Pop.
Kill it. Let's prove it wrong.
When you are fighting the Dread, whether solo or twins, make sure to stay close to them. You want your attacks to be hitting them, and putting too much distance between you and the Dread can cause you to deal too little damage. And we're already into phase 2. Here comes the first round of Cocoon Spit. Note how I'm still staying pretty close to the Dread. I'm just moving forward slightly to dodge the cocoons. Alright, the Dread is preparing to do the jump attack. You can tell by the freeze and scream sound it just made. Prior to the jump, the Dread will slowly rotate as it locks onto you. During this time, I move perpendicularly to avoid the jump. Note that I didn't have to move that far. I'm still staying very close to the Dread. Again, the intent is to ensure my attacks are hitting them. More cocoon spits, so we just do the same thing we did earlier and move forward to dodge it. We're now in stage 3 and here come the spikes. When the spikes come out, you should either plan to run out the cone or mine it immediately out the side. The Dread will usually do the jump attack right away, so if you happen to have absolutely terrible mining speed, run out the cone. I can hear and see the pre-attack animation, so I keep moving away somewhat perpendicularly.
This is perfect for the build.
More spikes, but the Dread is getting melted, so it should be over very soon. Again, we stay close to the Dread and keep moving to avoid the cocoon spit.
Hell yeah!
Another round of spikes, but it's too late now.
Dreadnought wiped out. Good work, team. Objective completed. Well done. Objective completed. Drop pod has arrived. Get there now. It will. Very well done, miner. Taking you back to the space rig.
Here's the Dread Cocoon for round 2, and out. I already procced the healing right at their spawn. I'm gonna stay close, but be vigilant as both twins always immediately attack out of the heal.
Abomination!
I move perpendicularly to dodge the melee jump and then move to dodge the fireballs. Fireballs are usually fired in 3s, where you have one in the middle and then 2 traveling outward in a cone shape. If you see the single fireball first, be ready to go either wide or stay in the middle as the fireballs split. If you see the 2 fireballs first, be ready to avoid the middle. Another jump animation, another quick dodge by moving perpendicular. I'm not moving a lot, just enough. More healing and more attacks out of the heal. Quick move up to dodge the jump and then down to dodge the fireballs.
It's a little extra special.
Here the range started to take more damage, so I actually turn around to move closer to the melee so more attacks will hit them and keep their health closer together so they won't heal.
Eat that!
And what do you know, they're dead.
Dreadnought down. Objective completed. Excellent job. Objective completed, miner. Get to the drop pod before it heads back to orbit.
I can't get enough of this rare stuff. Feeling much better now.
Very well done, miner. Taking you back to the space rig.
That concludes the 5th video in my series on how to be more successful at Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't watched the other parts, you can find links in the description or by browsing my YouTube page. I'll be taking a break from this series until the release of 1.0, at which point I'll pick it back up. If you have questions or feedback, drop a comment below, or feel free to ping me on the DRGS Discord. I'm the Hardcore Nutjob Guy. Thank you. Rockin' Stone.
Rock, stone, rock and stone.